Hello everyone, and welcome to Phoenix Gaming. Today it is going to be the beginning of the World Series of Board Gaming training season. So we've got the World Series of Board Gaming coming up at the end of September. If you're interested in attending, by the way, you can use my code Phoenix dropped in the bottom corner here to get $40 off of your ticket to attend the event. And I thought that what I would do is sort of a series of tier lists for us to go through, talking about the 16 games that are in the World Series of Board Gaming. This will be kind of the first of a series. And we're going to start off with something simple, something light today. We're just going to talk about which of these games I like the most, just in terms of like, what's the fun factor. So I'm not talking about how good I am at the games or what I think about the design of the games. It's just how much I like them. Although I guess how much I like them is really directly tied with the design of the games. So I'll be sure to mention that along the way. We're going to go pull up the games in alphabetical order and then just start kind of slotting them into the numbers. So we're not really going to have our official ranking of 16 until we've gone to the 16th game. If you like, this visual is going to be up there. If you're like me, you might just click all the way to the end and see what I ranked the 16, and then you're good to go there. But if you want to hear my logic through each of them, we're going to dive into that right now. So let's begin with our first game alphabetically, which is Seven Wonders. So Seven Wonders is a game that came out a while ago, and I think for the time period that it came out, it was, to me, it felt kind of revolutionary, the quantity of players that it could play. And it's funny because the thing that I like most about Seven Wonders is that it plays 7 people, but for it to be kind of more strategic, you want to be playing this game at 4 or 5 folks. I have fallen off the Seven Wonders train a bit. I like the game still. I'm never unhappy to play it. But it's not as gateway-ish as I originally kind of thought that it would be. And it's not crazy deep, in my opinion, as far as games go. I like Seven Wonders Duel a little bit more. I enjoy the fencing in that game that uses sort of like a similar mechanic. My guess is that this one is going to end up somewhere in the middle of my list. So we'll start off by moving... oh, can I get you? We're going to start off by moving this one over to number 8. If I can even move it. I've got all my pictures here stacked. It doesn't want me to move them. Oh no. This is going to be difficult without moving the right pieces. Let's go. Let's pause. All right, well, we might just need to stop, pause along the way here. The next game on our list is Acquire. Acquire is a game that's been out for ages. This is the picture of the brand new version that's coming out this year. I do like that box cover, but I don't like Acquire all that much. Acquire is a game that I think has a fair amount of luck in it, which is not inherently a problem, but you also can't be good at this game without really knowing what it is that you're doing. So it requires you to really be aware of what's going on. You're subject to a fair amount of volatility in what's going to happen throughout the course of the game. You can walk yourself into a corner and just be unable to do things through both bad play and bad luck. This game punishes both of those things, and I think it can just kind of lead to a really bumming experience. Both of the games that I watched, the player that jumped out to an early lead remained in an early lead at the World Series of Board Gaming. So I'm not convinced yet that Acquire is going to be a game that I'm ever going to love. I'm committed to trying it a few more times. There's a few people that I really trust that quite like this game, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So it's going to drop pretty quickly to the bottom of the list here. I'm going to put it at 14 and assume it's going to end somewhere at the bottom along the way there. And we're going to move right along to Ark Nova, one of the newer games on the list here. So Ark Nova is a game that it's interesting. It's had a bit of a history for me. When we first played it, I played it with my co-hosts on podcasts that I do with John from John Gets Games and Anastasia. We do a podcast called Friendly Ties, and we recorded ourselves playing this game on TTS, and it was a pretty miserable experience, to be honest with you. It was like a 5.5-hour ordeal. Some of it was a technical problem. Some of it was that like we had a rough game of this, and like getting into Ark Nova with like no context whatsoever was surprisingly difficult. I don't really understand why, because introducing this game to other people now doesn't seem to be quite so difficult. And in our most recent podcast, we talked about how breezy it is, and I quite like Ark Nova. It's not going to be my favorite game ever because I enjoy this game when it plays at the clip that I want to play it at, and I'd prefer to play with more players. I'm not generally much of a 2-player kind of person unless I'm playing a cooperative game. So it falls in a really weird spot for me where I think there are some games that it could just kind of drag on for too long, or you could sit at the wrong table. But I do really enjoy playing it. It is satisfying to manage your resources and, build a little zoo. Like, I do like the way that everything kind of looks at the end. And I've played it a ton of times. There's no question about the quantity of times that I've played this game. I mean, hundreds of times, which speaks for itself. So it's going to be somewhere near the top of the list, but it's not a game that I'm like totally in love with. So I'm going to guess that it's going to end up somewhere. It's certainly above Seven Wonders. We'll see where it ends at the end of the day. Azul is a game that I originally was not so impressed by. I was like, it's just a game with pretty tiles. People are suckers for good quality components, and the tiles are really nice. I don't really care about that. What I do care about is that the little math puzzle in this game and the way that you're taking resources in this game, the sort of factories as they call them that kind of dump into the middle, I think is actually just one of the tightest, neatest little games there is. This is a satisfying game for folks to play that are not thinking about the math of it. It's a satisfying game for folks to play that are thinking about the math of it. It's quick, but it rewards high skill. The skill ceiling is maybe not the highest or anything like that, but I think that this game is really solid. I enjoy playing it just about any time. I'd be happy to play it with just about anybody, which I think actually means I'm going to squeak Azul above Ark Nova, which is, I think, a pretty bold call because there are things about Ark Nova that I like more than Azul. But I think that the reality of it is just like bang for my buck. There's a couple experiences that I had in Ark Nova that are kind of like, not so exciting. A bad experience in Azul is... I honestly can't think of it. It's always going to be at least fine, And so that play experience for me puts Azul pretty high on the list for me there. Game after this is Brass Birmingham. Oh, that picture looks a little fuzzy. But Brass Birmingham is a game that I think is quite fun. I really enjoy the jockeying in this game. I think that to me, some of the play patterns and flows are like not so visible. I don't think this game is terribly accessible in the sense of you really kind of like need to get what's going on to really, I think, feel rewarded for playing this game. So it takes a little bit more work than I think a lot of the other games in this list to enjoy. And it's very meta dependent. Who you play with and what the folks around you are like changes the feel of this game. I think you really need folks to be on the same page of what kind of game you're playing. There can sort of be instances where someone who doesn't quite know what's up can, I think, just really not only stumble, but also sort of like mess with the ecosystem of the game in a way that I don't think necessarily improves the experience. So I like Brass Birmingham. I'm going to drop it below. It's above Seven Wonders for me. I'd be more excited to play Brass Birmingham than Seven Wonders, but I do think I'd prefer to play Ark Nova in most instances over Brass Birmingham. That being said, if we're talking about a group of people who I know are experienced in the game, I'd love to sit down and play with them. This is a game where I actually prefer playing with folks who are more experienced than I am at it, because I'm going to feel like I get to take something away from that experience. And I mean, I guess that's true for games in general, but it's not to be arrogant sounding, but that is not often the case. Whereas I know when I sit down at a table of players who are like, we play Brass Birmingham, that they're going to outclass me, and I will have a fun time doing that. So it's jockeying with Ark Nova, I'll say, but I'm going to put it just a smidge below Ark Nova. I imagine those two are going to be paired and stuck together for a while. Cascadia is a game that actually punches quite above its weight class for me. I did not expect that I would really enjoy tile laying quite as much as I do with this game, but I've been playing with my mom a fair amount recently, and it's a nice little game. I don't know that I'm in love with the scoring system of this game. I think it's a little bit too... rubber banded is not the right term. It's just very like rigid. You're talking about a couple teensy little points essentially between each player, but you're always counting up to 80. So there's a fair amount of scoring at the end for things that amount to like these teensy tiny little differences. Do I play this animal tile that's worth 2.3 points, or this animal tile that's worth 2.5 points, but gives me limited options? The numbers to me are not satisfying in this game, but it's pretty to build out the little like hexagonal ecosystem and drop the animal tiles on it. It's above Seven Wonders for me, but certainly below the Brass Birmingham Ark Nova pair there. So we're going to drop this here at 7 for now, see how that lasts over time. All right, We are coming up on Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy is a game that, for me, punches well below its weight class. This is a game that I should like. I think that it appeals to a lot of the things that I like as a Euro gamer and a gamer in general. It is about taking some randomness and turning it into something valuable. I love that kind of idea of taking randomness and turning it into something valuable. It scores you points in different ways. It has another thing in games that I really like, which is it rewards you for doing certain things early. There's a benefit for rushing to complete certain things, whereas I think a lot of games too often reward folks for just kind of like building up their systems, their engines, and then kind of like cashing it all in at the end. That's something I'm really good at exploiting, but I think I enjoy when a game challenges you to put out something early. Castles of Burgundy has all of these things, and for some reason does not hit the nail on the head for me. This game has totally been fine every time I've played it. It's inoffensive. I just find it uninspiring. I don't know if it's the muddiness of the art on the tiles, the fact that I just feel no connection whatsoever with what is being built in this game, but I'm not really ever excited to play this game. I'm never offended to play this game, so I don't have a big problem with it, and I'm okay at it, but I just have never been invested in trying to get better or play it more, because there are other games that fall at the 2.5 hour mark that I would rather be playing. It just doesn't, it feels like it has all the right little components, and somehow those just don't add together to be what I want them to be. So I'm going to put it somewhere down here. It's going to be certainly more than Acquire, but it's going to be not quite as high as other games that I've enjoyed more in the past, your Seven Wonders, your Cascadia, and things like that. All right, continuing along, we've got Dune Imperium coming up next. This is a game that I think is going to be wounded by the fact that I haven't been able to play it all that much. The times that I've played it, I've enjoyed it. I do like Dune Imperium quite a fair amount. Oops, am I frozen? Let me pause. All right, we're unfrozen. Great. I do like Dune Imperium quite a lot. The Dune gods. They're gods in Dune, right? No, maybe not. The Dune spirit Spice is angry with me for aligning this game. I know it's really, really well beloved, and I just haven't gotten the opportunity to play it a ton. I have not played the expansions either. I don't generally judge a game by its expansions. I've heard that it improves it. I don't really care about that. That is not my concern. I'm concerned about the base game here. And it's very tight. Tight in a way that I think is almost a negative thing. The action spaces of the game just do not allow for enough room for creativity for me to really ever fall in love with this game. I do think that the way the players jockey with each other, I think the tightness of the action spaces and moving up those tracks, there's a lot of nice little ways to score points in this game, but there's something I find very odd about that, Settlers of Catan race to 10 points thing. In a 4-player game, you're starting at 1, so you're scoring 9 points, and 4 of your points you can just essentially get for free by moving up the faction tracks. Just to me says that like 1 or 2 small things essentially sends this game kind of spinning in the direction that it's going to end up being, and I don't think I like that. I think that it ends up being I think that the play space, here's what I'm trying to say. I think the play space of this game is not as broad as I want it to be, but I like the systems in the game. I like the way that the hand and deck management integrates with your worker placement components of the game. And I do think that actually the combat system in this game is quite good. It's pretty simple, but it is something that is kind of like a very strange bidding mechanism. And I think it's quite well executed for a game that says, hey, I want to have some conflict, but I'm also in a Euro style. So I like Dune Imperium. I know it would move up this list if I played it more, but its play space is just not quite exactly what I want. I'm going to drop it below the Brass Birmingham and Ark Nova pair there. Next, what we have up is Gaia Project. I really like Gaia Project. I'm not so great at this game. There's just a fair amount going on here. And for you to understand why I like Gaia Project so much, I think you also need to understand that Terra Mystica is one of my favorite games of all time. I really like games where it's like build out your structure. Everything is sort of expanding. You continue to have this like growing income system. I suck at Gaia Project because I'm never good enough at pivoting from getting those resources into scoring points. Gaia Project asks you to be very intentional in how you score points in a way that other games aren't. In a lot of other games, you can kind of just score points along the way by doing the thing. Gaia Project does not give that to you, which is the part of it that is, I think, very challenging and inaccessible to me, having played it a lot of times, and inaccessible to players who are getting there for the first time. So it's going to be a long journey, but the pieces, the components look beautiful. The asymmetry of the factions, even though they're completely imbalanced with one another, is very fun. I really like playing Gaia Project, so I'm going to put this pretty high on the list in terms of the fun factor. For me, there's just a lot to manage in that game in a way that always feels really satisfying to me. I think it is fun to watch other people, execute their game plans. I will say with Gaia Project, it is, I criticize some of the other games in terms of getting into it at the beginning. If you have a slow start, you can just feel yourself falling behind, and yeah, you can build a little bit more, but you can just see yourself having like weaker turns than every other player. So it's a game that really asks players to either uplift each other, kind of like encouraging each other into the right spots if you're playing of greatly different skill factors, but you really want to be playing with folks who are kind of on the same page as you, I think, to get the most out of it. This one, Great Western Trail, is a game that I adore. It's probably going to end up as number one on this list. You can see certainly that I am more of a heavy gamer, and these boxes are getting in my way and they're annoying me. I'm more of a heavy gamer than a lighter gamer. So, certainly take my judgments of what I think is fun here with a grain of salt in that way. But Great Western Trail is a game that the first time I played it at Origins at 1 o'clock in the morning, learning it straight out of the rule book. As I was teaching the other people, and we played through the game, and I immediately was in love with it. The hand management, the loop building, the different kinds of approaches to strategy, the fact that you can hybrid strategies. I have played this game hundreds of times. It's one of the games that I won the ring for. It's the game that I would have said that I'm most competitive in. But I'm good at this game not because it naturally plays to my strengths. I remember the first tournament I ever played in this at the WBC. I got clocked, absolutely clocked, and I was like, oh my god, I need to go back to the drawing board and sort of like relearn this game. I don't really know how to play it competitively. So it's not that it's always clicked with me in terms of strategically, but I've always enjoyed the mechanisms, and getting more into the nuances has just been more and more delightful throughout time. I think the second edition is a great improvement over the first edition. No, I have not played Argentina or New Zealand, so I don't know what those are like, but I imagine I would like them too, because what I like about this game is the integration of moving through the track, managing your hand, managing the money. I think that it just has the right amount of resources in a game to not feel like burned down and messy. Instead, I think it just has the right amount of challenging management throughout the game. And I could talk for days about why Great Western Trail is an amazing game. So I'm just gonna put that to the top of the list. I'm sure that will be in the number one spot by the time we get to the end here. Patchwork is a game I like. Uwe Rosenberg. I like Polymino type stuff. Feast of Odin, I think, is like one of Uwe's most fun games. I really, really like that game. It's actually one of the few games that I actually own on my shelf, thanks to my partner finding it at a Ding and Dent. Really, really happy to have that on my shelf. Patchwork, however, has only landed okay for me. I think it is a fun game. I suck at this game so bad, but I don't like that when you get good at this game, the amount of times that you're supposed to like be passing and like reading 4 or 5 moves ahead. Like, this is a very cerebral game in a way that I don't find to be satisfying, because everything is so kind of like on the board, and then you can really boil everything down to a math thing. And then the Polymino thing is more like a restriction than something that is enjoyment. It doesn't feel satisfying. It feels like you just screwed up. So this is a game that instead of me feeling positive at the end, I feel like, oh, thank God I didn't mess it up if I did well, or I messed it up. So there's something about the way that it is so rigidly structured that doesn't quite land for me. So Patchwork's going to be a little bit below Burgundy, but certainly above Acquire still, which is maybe just going to slide to the bottom of the list here because I'm not a fan. Ooh, we're going to get a big slide here because I like Ra. I've played Ra for quite a long time. This game has been around for ages. But I like Ra because you can play with people of all sorts of different skill levels, and it is satisfying no matter what. This is a game with a fair amount of variance in it. That being said, the players who know how to play this game well are generally going to perform well. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of the same people at the final table next year, but there is a lot of randomness in Raw. You can really push your luck in this game. I think the players who are best in this game know how they can push their luck. I think the Raw piece is so good. Calling Raw and slamming the token on the table is just absolutely delightful. I like the little kind of like mini culture around it. And I just think it is a very neat game. People in general say they don't like bidding games. I like that in Raw, it's not that you're bidding like value or money. You're just bidding essentially position or power or flexibility, right? With these like tokens. It's a neat way to challenge players to account for how important and how valuable do you think this is without them, like a game like Medici that asks you to like bid points. It's like explicitly, how many points is this worth? Really requires you to understand the core of a game. Whereas in Raw, it's just like, hey, you really want to make sure you make 3 bids. So you're mostly just jockeying around what other players are doing and this random timer that is occurring. So, high game for me. I think Raw is going to slot in above Dune. Let's put Raw above Dune. I've enjoyed my plays of Raw quite a bit. Dune, again, like I said, might overtake it if I had some more experience in the long run, but we're not just quite there yet. Splendor. Splendor is almost like the opposite of Azul. I thought when Splendor came, like Azul came out, I was like, it's cute pieces, whatever. It's not going to be good, and it's really moved up my rankings. Splendor is the opposite. I was like, a little engine building game. It's tight. It's got these like cute pieces, but you buy these cards and you can like, sort of like build out this thing, and this pays into this. That seems like a light game that I could really get into. And I do think Splendor is accessible. I'm still happy to play it a bunch of the time. However, I don't enjoy the whole reserving mechanic. I don't enjoy that kind of some of the best strategies in the game essentially just involve reserving the most expensive cards and essentially just gearing straight for it. I don't enjoy that Splendor is a game where primarily you're focusing on this, like, how do I stop my opponent? Like, I've reserved such and such tiles. It's kind of like almost like area control for these specific gems. Like, I've got these reds, so you're never going to complete that. So it sucks for you for that card that's stuck in your hand. All that stuff, I don't really enjoy. It's not fun for me to play. I enjoy playing this game with people that don't take it seriously. But I'm never super juiced about it. So Splendor's pretty low on the list for me. I think I'm going to drop Splendor. I'm thinking about Patchwork is where I'm comparing it. It's better. I like it more than Acquire. And I've gotten more into it lately. I've played it more than I have Patchwork. I think I'm going to put Splendor above Patchwork. I think I'm actually even going to put it above Castles of Burgundy here, because Castles of Burgundy, again, I'm not so excited to play. Whereas I'm generally not going to say no to playing Splendor. Happy if folks want to do that. But I don't love my experience. This is a totally okay game. I'm not offended by it, but I'm never super into the idea of it. Terraforming Mars. I really dig Terraforming Mars. I like the Terraforming Mars experience. This is actually kind of similar to what I was talking about with Gaia Project and Terra Mystica, but the like building up things. It's just in this game, instead of it being on the board, it's your resources, and then collecting that income every turn. That's a kind of thing that really, really clicks with my brain. I have enjoyed some of the Terraforming Mars expansions and not some of the others. I think this is a really wonderful game. The thing that holds Terraforming Mars back is that it is miserably long for what it is. I wish that there was a way to just kind of tighten this game up in terms of its speed. There's just a little bit too much management that goes along the way. I've seen folks use like a house rule of like every player must take their 2 actions every turn, which I think is a great house rule for keeping the game moving at a reasonable clip. The game is just sadly better with drafting rather than just drawing, but the drafting phase adds so much time to the game in a way that I don't want to. So the time component is my primary criticism here, but I dig Terraforming Mars. I think I actually dig it more than I like Ark Nova and Brass Birmingham. I think in a lot of ways Ark Nova and Brass Birmingham are better games, but Terraforming Mars scratches that income itch in my head that I really like. But I've gone on and off. Like there are years where I'm hot and cold on Terraforming. I will not play Terraforming Mars with strangers at a game night. I've made that mistake a couple times and really suffer the consequences for it. So I don't think I'm going to move it above Azul, but we will slide all the rest of these puppies down. I'm going to have to do a lot of sliding here because I don't think the last two games here are 15th and 16th place. And we're going to slide Terraforming Mars into 4th here. You can see certainly my extreme bias towards heavy games here. The cursed game, Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride's the cursed game because I lost it at the semifinals last year. It was one of the games that I did not want to play in the semifinals, along with Carcassonne, which I hate even more than Ticket to Ride. And unfortunately, I was banded by one of these two choices. Ticket is a game that actually has grown on me since its release on BGA. I've played it a handful of times. The idea in this game that you just collect piles of cards in your hand, and like the correct way to play is to like have a 30 card hand, annoys the crap out of me. It makes total sense why that works. I just think it is an extremely boring way to play a game. For the first half of the game to be like draw cards, draw cards, draw cards, draw cards, draw cards, and then sort of like blah, just out on the track. I do think that the Ticket to Ride expansions or different maps are more interesting, but I haven't played them that much because I don't care that much about this game. It is elegant. I will give this game, it has a certain elegance to it, and building networks is satisfying, so I do quite like that about it. I think actually Ticket has probably slid above Splendor for me. I think that the play loop in Ticket is a little bit more... I don't like the beginning half of Ticket as much as I like the beginning half of Splendor, but I like the second half of Ticket a lot more than I like the second half of Splendor. And then what I have at the end feels more like I've built something out, whereas at the end of the game of Splendor, I don't feel like I've built anything. I just kind of... It just kind of is. So we're going to slide Ticket in here right above Splendor. And then we've got our final game here, so we can finally establish our total list here. We've got Wingspan. Okay. Wingspan's a game that, first of all, I am listed in the rulebook because I helped playtest it. It's the designer, Elizabeth Hargrave, is local to where I am now and where I was before I moved to California for a handful of years. So yeah, I played it in its kind of original iterations. I think that it has come a long way in a really positive way. It's super exciting and to see a game develop in that sort of way. The game doesn't have quite the amount of teeth that I want it to have, and also I don't love that a couple of the birds just feel head and shoulders above the rest of the birds. That is not a complaint about balance in a way that it's like, oh, I don't think that it's balanced, I don't like playing it. It's a complaint about balance in a way that sometimes you can play this game and people just get these like certain bird draws and you're like, great, you've won. I can tell that you're going to win. And now I'm just kind of playing to make birds along the way. It is very satisfying in this game to trigger sort of like the row of cards. I think that is a nice, very elegant mechanism for doing engine building. It doesn't quite have the build-up feel that I think I'm looking for in a lot of games. So I think Wingspan is going to fall below Dune Imperium for me, but above Cascadia. Wow, Cascadia is a game that I quite like, has slotted down to 10 here. I think that honestly is a reflection of I'm pretty excited to play just about any of these games at the WSBG here. And I think this is going to be our final ranking here. So in terms of our fun factor, what are the games that Nick Henning at Phoenix Gaming loves the most? We're going to have number 1, Great Western Trail. Number 2, Gaia Project. Heavy hitters right at the top. 3, Azul for just a nice, easy afternoon with whoever, where I still get to think about what I'm doing. Terraforming Mars for that same Gaia Project income thing that I'm going on. Ark Nova for a very similar Terraforming Mars experience. I think that the highs of Ark Nova are higher than Terraforming Mars, but the lows of Ark Nova are also much lower than Terraforming Mars. Brass Birmingham, which is a game that I just probably don't have the chops in enough yet, and you really need to have the right group of folks with, I think, to play and make it as satisfying as it can be. Raw, just a really, really good push your luck game with some nice valuation components in it. Dune, a very enjoyable worker placement game with lots of nice integrated different things across the essentially board game space that I think they've put together into a solid little game. Wingspan, like I said, a very elegant builder. Cascadia, you make a beautiful little ecosystem there with the tiles. And then we're kind of tipping into the things that I'm not as excited to play. Seven Wonders, totally fine drafting game, but to me doesn't quite have the like enthusiasm or soul that the rest of the ones kind of above it do. Ticket to Ride, just the play style in the beginning of the game, I think is really unsatisfying. Splendor, a game that I wished was more engine building than it really is. I think that the sort of like correct way to play this game has made it just less satisfying in the long run for me. Castles of Burgundy, which is a game that I don't think really belongs here and sort of like bucks the trend, like Azul bucks the trend at the top by being the light game. This is the heavier or medium game at the bottom. I just have never loved it, and I have a hard time putting my finger on why. Patchwork in 15th place because I feel like I like the little components here, but it's a little bit too chess-like for me. I like my games to be a little bit more, I don't know, flexible, random. I want there to be a little bit more circumstances that I need to respond to rather than just like what the correct kind of situation is. I'm not a Go player. I'm not a chess player. I think Patchwork kind of leans into that side of things. And then Acquire, unfortunately, sitting here at 16th place. Although one of the coolest box arts and the only picture that I got that had the see-through so you could still see me, it's sitting perfectly at 16th place here. I just really don't like the Acquire taxes your memory, which is a thing I don't respect in games and I don't value. I'm okay at memory, not as good as the people who are really good at this game, but better than people who are not good at it. I don't like that it taxes that on folks. I don't think that's a fun mechanism for people to engage with. I don't like how random the kind of like tied in tiles are with each other. I'm happy to give it some more of a chance, but it deserves its 16th place on this spot, I think. And that's for me. That's my preferences for fun factor for the 16 WSBG games. Hope to see you there this year. Let me know in the comments like what your list looks like. I'd love to compare notes. I'm sure that I probably have a core audience of folks here who lean on the heavier side rather than the lighter game. So a bit biased probably in our conversation that we'll have here, but I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye.